Okay, so thanks for coming back for part two of my processing tutorial on basically how my method of um, processing a galaxy. So in the first episode, we ran through um, the first part of my process, which is basically to open up the master light from the file that's been produced in PixInsight WBPP. And then I've basically run an automatic background extraction uh, to get rid of the gradient, most of the gradient. And we did a spectrometric photo calibration. And then we did blur exterminator to basically just tidy up the stars. And I left it at noise exterminator. So we're at this stage now. We have our file and we're just about to um, apply Star Exterminator, which will separate the stars from the galaxy. And then my process is to basically work on the stars and the galaxy separate and then combine them later with a script called Image Blend. So I'll open up Star Exterminator and I just leave it at the defaults. You don't need to unscreen stars as it hasn't been stretched yet. So I'll just apply this and I'll pause the video as it takes a little while to go through. Okay, so we're back and as you can see we've got our separated images. They still haven't been stretched yet. You can tell that by the green line down the side here. So basically if I was to turn off the stretch, the automatic stretch, you just see the unstretched image. Um, so basically at this stage you have a few choices on how to approach it. I usually start with the stars and there are a couple of ways to do it. What I'll usually go for is something that's relatively subtle compared to the galaxy because you want to really sort of accentuate the galaxy more than the stars, especially an image where the galaxy is a little smaller. So if you go up here to script, Frank over at SETI Astro does a great batch of tools here. One that's very sort of handy is a star stretch, and pretty much what that'll do is stretch it to the default. From what I can see, stretch it to the default system transfer function stretch. So uh, this is the setting here. He's even got a cool little preview window here that you can basically see what level this is going to stretch at. And you can increase and decrease the stretch amount. So if you wanted smaller stars, you just need to refresh that preview. And as you can see there, that's dimmed the stars down, probably too much for what I'm needing. So I'm going to go back up to where we were, have a little look at that. I think, yeah, that's not too bad. If you look at um, the STF stretch over here, those stars are looking a little bit bigger there. So in this um, preview, you can see that it's reduced them a little bit. So I'm probably going to see what it looks like there. You can always revisit this if you're not happy with it. There's also a zoom function in here to make it a bit bigger. Um, there's also a color boost, which can be handy if you just want to add a little bit of color in at this point. You can also do that later on, but doesn't hurt to sort of see where you're at here anyway. So I'm going to go with this and hit execute. And as you can see, so now here you can see it's a stretched image. We've lost the green. And if I zoom in on these stars, I think they're pretty good. You got little halos around some of those, but they're very bright stars, so I think that's going to be suitable for what I need. Now, at this point, sometimes what I'll do is if I feel like there's not enough color in these stars, then I'll go to my curves transformation and just make sure that this is selected. And you can click on the real-time preview, which is the circle button, and basically that will give you an idea of what it looks like. Now, there's many different options here, but usually if I'm just going for the saturation, just to increase that color a little bit, I'll pull that up, and as you can see, that's just made a difference there. You can toggle that on and off to see how much color you're adding. Excuse me. So let's apply that. If you wanted to increase it even more, you can see that in them now. If I hit that that apply button again, that's gonna bring it to this level. Or if I only wanted to say bring that up a little bit more, I could reset the tool, which brings it back to where we are, and then just maybe click and drag and give it a little bit in here. And I think that looks pretty good anyway. So let's go with that and get out of there. Okay, as you can see, I'm zoomed in a bit there, but I think that's given us a little bit of color now in those stars, and quite happy with that. You can always check it and go back. There's a before and after, so I think that looks pretty nice. Yep, we've got some good colors there, some blues and reds. Okay, so at this stage what I would do is rename this file, and I'd just probably call it stars. There we go. And then I'll save that and at this stage I usually save it as a TIFF file, and because what I'll do is occasionally I'll bring these files into Photoshop, and Photoshop won't let you bring in XISF files. So we'll convert these to TIFF files now. Again, I'll call this stars and just save it in my directory here. And it'll pop up with a TIFF options. Usually 16-bit is what Photoshop likes, plus it's also will reduce the file size down. You could choose 32-bit, but really you're just getting bigger files and it's unnecessary in my opinion. So we'll go OK for that, and that one's done. Now usually what I'll do is I'll just minimize this and just get it out of the way there. And now we can start to work on the starless version of the Galaxy. Now I'll usually have a look at the STF stretch to see where we're kind of at and if I need to do more. There's a couple of options here. I could basically use this stretch here and just tweak it. So what I mean by that is if I wanted to keep the stretch here, that's the STF stretch, what I would do is open STF and make sure that this is linked to this image. And then what I'll do is also open histogram transfer. And to get the STF stretch of this image, over here, what you would do is basically select the little triangle icon, pull that across, and you can see that it changes from a plus to what looks like, to me, I call it an hourglass in the bottom there. And then when you let go, you've got that stretch basically from STF in here. So if I wanted to now apply what was in the screen transfer function to make this a permanent stretch, I can just hit this apply, and it'll send it white, but don't freak out. You haven't wrecked anything. It's basically just got another stretch on top of that. So if you reset the tools, it will show you where you're at. Green line's gone, as you can see, so that means we've got a permanent stretch here. I can get rid of histogram, and I can also get rid of STF now. I'm pretty much finished with those. And what I'll do now is, my process is, I don't know if other people do this, but it's kind of something that I've just worked on myself. I'll open up GHS and use that primarily now to do my final kind of stretches. What I'll generally do is change that to the log file. You can see that there's a lot of area in here that we can alter. So that's the background of basically where there's no data. So we could do that first of all. So to do that, you come down to generalized hyperbolic, pull that down to linear. And the other thing we want to do actually is click real-time preview so we can see what's going on. Yeah, I'll just use that. And again, that's linear. So what I'll do is I usually leave a little bit that I can, if I bring it into Photoshop after, I've still got a little bit to play with to darken it up if I need to. So you click here, send to BP. There we go. You can see how that's now gone from that to that. So you can see the darkness has changed, and we're happy with that. So we'll apply that. Then don't forget to reset the tool, and we're back to where we are. Okay, so that's taken care of that area there. Made this a little bit darker. Now to zoom in, we can use the zoom tool, and primarily now I'll be working on the Galaxy to see where we're at and if we can tweak that a little bit more. It's actually done a pretty good job. So yeah, we can click in the image here, and you can see that over here, wherever I click is changing that point. So we may be able to get a little bit more out on the outer boundaries. The thing to watch out for is the level in the center of the galaxy there. Usually it's pretty high there, but it's not blown out at 1. You can see the levels for RG and B are under the 1.0 mark. So that's generally what I'll try and keep it just under 1. Because if you want to sort of introduce any color, if it's over 1, it's not really going to take the color up because it's already blown out. So what we can do is just have a little look here. I'll send that over there, and we can give it a little tweak and see what that does. Now that's brightened it up a bit, and I think that's not too bad. So we can apply that, reset the tool, Annoyingly, it doesn't keep your zoom effect, but so you can see where I click in the galaxy here that the point is quite a long way away. So if I send that to there, or reduce down the local intensity a little bit, so it's not making as dramatic an effect, and you can see that that little tweak there has just brought down our graph. And to me, if I toggle this on and off, I can see that that to me has given us a bit more detail in here. So I'm going to go with that. Reset the tool. Now, I'm not going to do, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm not going to do too much more in here, but you could spend a lot of time tweaking that, and every image is different, so you may need to spend more time on that than I have here. But basically, you've got a reasonable image there to work with from this point. So let's get out of there. Now at this stage, what I would generally do is we want to really bring some color out in these galaxies. So we want to do that without adding too much color to the background. So generally what I'll do is I'll hit it with curves, and we'll put that on so we can see what we're doing. I'll give it a saturation boost. We can bring that up. And you can see that's just added some color in there. If I zoom in here, yeah, it's looking a little bit green, but we can deal with that later. So it's gone from sort of that to that. So generally what I would do is probably try and take some of this green out. Try to keep the color as close to original as possible, but generally I go by my eye at this stage, and to me that's looking way too green. So if I just reduce this down just a fraction, you can see that that green is now coming out a bit. Yeah, we have to be careful not to affect the background too much, but yeah, I think that's pretty good. I like that. It's brought out some of the reds, and we can see some blue in here, some O3. So we'll apply that as art. Go back. Okay. Now, if I was going to do much more work on the color, which I will, this is at this stage is probably where I would add a mask. So my method of doing this is range mask. So I'll use a range mask, and basically this is going to grab the highlight, or the higher um, level galaxies. So anything that's bright, it's going to kind of mask out. So as you can see, it's like totally white at the moment. So by using this slider, what I can do is reduce that white limit down to only get the areas that I want. So as you can see, what that means is anything that's white, I can adjust with the aid of this mask. Anything that's black is protected. So we don't really want it as kind of jagged as this. The one thing that I do is I use this screening tool to see how much, or to see if we're catching all of the galaxy. So yeah, I can see that we've got it there. But what I want to do is not make this as jagged as this. We want a bit of a smoother transition. So there's a smoothness button here that basically, you can see that as I'm sliding that, it's blurring the edges of the image, which is what we want. So that looks pretty good. We'll apply that, and that's going to give me a mask to protect the background and let me work on the galaxies further for color. So if I get rid of this, now the way to apply this is basically grab that corner, move it across, and then underneath, drop it. And don't close this box because it'll actually get rid of your mask. So generally, what I do is I just I shade the box and just move it to the side. Now we don't really want to work on this as it is here with the mask showing. So you can either go up to the show mask and hit that button, or I'm used to the shortcut for this now, which is Control or Command K, and I hit that on the keyboard, and there we go. So it's still applied. You can see it's still orange here, so that mask is still there, but it now allows us to work on this without unduly affecting the background too much. And vice versa, we could go in, if we weren't happy with the color of the background, we could invert this mask and work on the background. But for the sake of this video, I'll just show you what I'm going to do here. So now it actually has other purposes as well. So you can see that the color I'm not happy with at the moment, and also it's a little blurry. We can probably sharpen that up. So unsharp mask, I think, is a very good tool. There's some advanced automated processes for this, but I use this tool quite a bit. So if we go to unsharp mask, again, it's good in my opinion to use the real-time preview. And what I'll generally do is zoom in this way, so as I can see what difference that's made. Now, what it'll do is it'll apply automatically, so that whatever my tool was set at before, it's going to use that level. So if I want to see the before and after now, so there's actually some sharpness been applied. So if I turn that off, that's the level we're at. And if I was to apply this, this is what we get now. So whilst that's great and it's brought out a lot of detail, it might be a bit too much, maybe for my taste here. So this is where I'll generally pull that down at, and you can see that now it's just less. Yeah, that to me just looks like it's enough without overdoing it. I think you can overdo this side of the processing. That looks pretty good. It's bringing out a lot more of these spiral arms, and I think that looks pretty nice actually. So if I turn that off, that's the difference we've made, is from that to that. And I don't think that's overdone. Some people might. You can go too far and just make it look totally crazy. If I apply this, you'll see what I mean. So that level there has got 2 levels of process on it. If I take that back, this now is a much more natural looking, to me anyway, a much more natural looking galaxy. So that's before and that's after. So I think that looks pretty nice. There's still a bit of noise there we can get rid of, see in here, but that's sharpened that up quite nice, and it will have done the same for these little tiny outer galaxies you can see all around. I love this image. Lots of little galaxies. Okay, so what I'll do is have another look at what we do, curves transformation, and just see where we're at with the colors. Have a little look in here. Yeah, I think it's still a little green. So some of this is to taste, to be honest. And I suppose this is a little bit where the artistic side of things come in. So yeah, as I was saying, to me this just looks still a little bit green. But now we're just affecting the, now that's better, that little movement there. So we've gone from that to that, which I think is a bit more realistic as far as the colors go. Yeah. So I'm basically going to leave it there for now and apply that. That looks horrible, but there you go. So that's made a bit of a difference, I think. And yeah, if we zoom in there, gone from that to that. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's made a pretty good difference. Might just remove the mask and hit this with a bit of noise exterminator. Looking a bit noisy now. Could do this in Photoshop, but actually, yeah, I'll just let's check out the color of these other galaxies too. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. But yeah, see, a bit noisy. All right, so we'll remove the mask. So if I go up to mask, remove mask, now it's gone. Now I can hit it with a bit of a noise exterminator. We probably don't need as much as that. So drag that in there. We'll let that go. Okay, so we've now got our stars only image. We've got our starless image. I can rename that if I want to starless. And as you can see here, that's looking much better color wise. It's a bit sharper. So quite happy with that. I did do a little bit more tweaking to the background. So I just inverted the mask that I had because it was looking a little red in the color of the background from previous stretch. But what I'm sometimes doing now is leave it at this stage, make sure I've saved this starless image. Save as starless, yes. Already had it there, but we just make sure that we've got our two images as they are. Now, usually my final step with my starless image is to bring this into Photoshop just to do some final tweaks, as I find that Photoshop's camera raw filter is really good at just enabling you to do some small adjustments on that starless image. That's what I like doing anyway. There's other ways you can do it, but this is my process, so that's the way I'm going to sort of show you. Okay, so I'm just going to close this image because we've got it saved. The stars are saved also, and I'll go down to Photoshop and launch that, and just wait for that to open. Then I'm going to bring the starless image into Photoshop, and I'll show you some final tweaks that I use before I then recombine the images back in PixInsight. So Photoshop's opening now. I don't have the fastest laptop. I'm working from a laptop. It's not the fastest machine, but anyway. So we'll open the file and just go down to my hard drive where I've got my files, and we're working in October, and NGC 908 is the Galaxy. So I've done a final version here previously, but I will show you how I got to that. All right, so we don't need this timeline. That was just from when I was creating the video, but what I'll do is first of all create a duplicate layer so I can always go back if I need to. So I'm now working on this layer. I'm just going to get rid of that timeline because it's a bit off-putting. There we go. All right, so I'll go up to filter, camera raw filter, and it brings you into another sort of window here to work on, and you've got all these options here as part of camera raw filter, and these are what I use primarily just to make the final touches to the stylus image. So if you want to zoom in, you can go down to the bottom left hand side there. I usually go in about there. You can come in and out as you like, but that now gives us a good close look at what we've got going on as far as the color goes. The first thing I do is I'll have a look at the exposure settings. Sometimes you might find that there's a bit too much color noise in the background of this. As you can see up the top here, top right hand side, there's that bit of room that I left originally to be able to increase the background. So if I go down to curves here, you can see that I can now move this without clipping the shadow, without clipping the data, which is these colored bars. So if I grab this down the bottom here, you can see the colored bars at the top move closer, and the image is just getting a little bit darker there. Now that's clipped in there, but what we want to do is just move it to the edge. So it's brought this a bit darker, the background, but it's not clipped. So I'm happy with that. I'll now go to the light panel here. There are some little moves you can make. You can play around with, the highlights. And so right in the core of that galaxy, I could just reduce that down a little bit. See, that's more, that's less. I don't try not to play with it too much, but probably about there's looking pretty good. And I'm going to leave the rest of it because I think it's looking pretty good. Okay, so there's a color panel where there's the temperature you can change, tint, the vibrance and the saturation. And this is sometimes where I'll up the saturation a little bit if I want to just bring those colors up a little bit more. And something like, without trying to overdo it. Something like that. I think it's looking pretty good. Then down to effects, there's a clarity slider here that you can just give a little tweak. I don't know if you can see that on YouTube, but the level of detail is just improving a little bit when I go on the clarity. We've already had a look at curves. I don't worry about the color mixer or color grading. Detail, the detail, if I open that up, there's a sharpening, which I use constantly with my images. It's usually a balance here between sharpening and noise reduction and color noise reduction. This is where I feel like I have more more control than when I'm using noise exterminator in PixInsight. That's why I come in here to do final kind of sharpening and noise control. So I can pull this slider now and you can see that sharpening up, but you can also see the noise increasing a bit. So it's a juggling act between sharpening the Galaxy but not going too far with the noise. And a lot of this I think is going to be to people's taste. I'll also give the noise reduction and the color noise reduction a little bit of a tweak and a play just to see how that affects the image, and it might point me back to going and adding a bit more color or vibrance to where I'm at. Something like this is okay. I'm not going to stuff around too much with it for the sake of this video. So now I'm just going to come down to the bottom and apply those changes. So here I can basically try and show you a bit closer if I view to screen. So I can toggle the layers off now. So all the changes have happened on the background layer. So the background copy layer, I should say. So if I turn that off, you can see what that's actually done to the image. So I don't know about you or if it shows up on YouTube enough, but I think that's quite a dramatic difference and looks a lot better in my eyes. So what I'll do here is I'll say the file isn't massive. We don't need this original layer now. So I'll just delete that layer, which leaves us with our changes. So I'll now do a file, save as, and I'll usually name this something that shows me that I've been in Photoshop. So I'm just going to go Starless P Shop, and that's in our original area. So now I have my final Starless image that I'm relatively happy with. So I'll now close Photoshop, come back to PixInsight. I've got my original stars image. Now I'm going to open the Starless Photoshop image that we just worked on. Okay, so here we are. You can change the name of the image there if you want to, but I don't really care at this stage because we're going to now combine these through a process. I used to use combine images, and combine images is just a pixel math command, if you like, that if you read there you can see that it just combines starless and stars. Now these two images at the moment, if I was to hit pixel math here, it'll spit out an error because it needs to they need to be named starless and stars according to this expression. So I could probably actually show you this. If I hit this now, see down the bottom there it says error, no such image, because this one here is called image 4 instead of starless. So all right, just for the sake of this video, I'll rename this to Starless. Okay, so now when I hit Pixel Math, it'll actually combine these two images as they are. So there you go. So this is a combination of both of those images using this Pixel Math combine expression. Now that's what I used to use. Now I'll just minimize this for now, because what I now use, and Adam Block has a very good tutorial about this, is I'll go up to here to the Process Explorer, and under my favorites because I use it a lot, is Image Blend. If you don't know where it is, you can always come over to the Process Explorer and type in Image Blend here and it'll find it for you. It'll find any process actually. So that's a handy tip for people if they're looking for a process under all processes, and there's quite a lot there. If you don't know where it is and you want to get to it quickly, this is a good way of finding it. You can click in there and type image blend, or like I've got here in my favorites, I can come down to image blend, and this, click on it once will tell you all the parameters. Here we go, it's been designed in consultation with Adam Block. So he's the full bottle on that, but there's more information about what image blend does and what you can do with it here. But if I double click it, it'll actually launch the window. Now at the moment, as you can see, there's nothing selected, but so what I'll do is in my base image here, I'm going to put my starless image. So I'm just going to keep the defaults. Actually, what that's done is it's already populated it with the stars image. So this is actually what we want. So it's now grabbed starless and stars and blended them together. And this is the view of, if I was to execute now, this is the image you would get. What you can do in here, you can do quite a lot of things in this tool, but primarily what I use it for now is to, if I want to reduce or increase the size of the stars in an image like this, what I can do is come down to the blend image of the stars, and under the adjustment parameters in the midtones there, I can grab this slider, and if I go all the way to the right, you can see that that is pretty much removed all of the stars. So that's too much. But what it'll also let me do is, as I run this back, it will increase the amount that the stars are showing. So that's quite a bit there. They're quite big, but not too bad, because you can still see the galaxy. But you know, if you really wanted the galaxy to be the predominant image here, or the predominant focal point, let's say, it's good to reduce the size of those stars. You can actually click here, drag, and it'll zoom in like that if you want a closer look, and then you can double click the image to zoom back out again. Now I think this looks pretty good. Quite happy with this. So I can come down here to the apply button, hit that. It's now given me that image that I can see there as a final image, and here it is. So we've got, if I reduce these or shade these images of stars and starless, we're pretty much done with those. But remember, we've also got them saved, so if we ever wanted to go back and have a look, we can do that. I think this looks pretty reasonable. You could do some more work on this. I would generally at this stage maybe bring this back into Photoshop and just to put my little logo down in the corner here. And by comparison, this is the image that where we just combined the images without reducing the star level. So, you know, some people might look at it and say, well, you've reduced the stars too much, or not enough. So it's to taste, but at least you can see that they're the two different options that you could get by using those two methods. Anyway, I'm cognizant of how long this video is at the moment, so I'm probably just going to wrap it up there. Obviously you would want to save this final image, and you could crop it if you wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it here. And yeah, hopefully that's giving you something to sort of go by if you're unsure of certain things in PixInsight. Yeah, if you can just click on like and subscribe in YouTube for me, that'd be a big help. Thanks very much. I just have one final step to show you, and this was requested by Russell, and so I'll just show you what I would do with this image. The very last step. Basically, you can see that this is rotated on a sort of a sideways angle, and I just feel from a final sort of point of view, it would be good to see this image rotated. So there's a tool called Fast Rotate, and that's this one over here. So if I double click that, basically Fast Rotate does exactly what it says. It'll rotate your image, 90 degrees clockwise. You can go counterclockwise, mirror it, whatever. All I want to do is rotate this 90 degrees clockwise. So I'll choose that. Hit yes. It tells you that you're going to lose your astrometric solution, but you can actually add that back afterwards if you like to. And there we go. So I think that looks much better. And what I would do now is potentially you could crop this image in tighter if you wanted to. I would use dynamic crop, which is here. And again, this would be to suit your image. There are some small galaxies here, so I don't want to lose those galaxies when I crop this image. So I'm just going to try and crop it down, but keep as many of those galaxies as I can. So you've done a lot of work to get those galaxies in the first place, so it makes sense that you would want to keep those. So I'd go maybe something like this. It's a little bit higher, but that's okay. And double click that. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. What I could do now, if I wanted to keep the astrometric solution for uploading into, say, AstroBin or something else, if you go back up to astrometry and image solver, you could run image solver again and basically just put in the details. So in here, you would make sure you got the current year and the month, and it doesn't have to be exactly, but the rough sort of day, if you like, that the images were taken. And you would search. This searches the Gaia catalog for your nebula. So I know this is NGC 908. We do a search. Yep, that's the one. Go OK. Go OK. It'll now run. And as you can see down the bottom there, it's looking at the catalog, the star catalog. It's basically reapplying the astrometric solution to this image. So that's what I would do. Again, if I wanted to add my logo, I'd bring that back into Photoshop, and then I would just save this as a final image. I've got one saved here, but I'll call this version 2 just for the sake of it, and we're pretty much done. So I hope that helps Russell and others. Just to quickly sort of show, well, not quickly, it's a fairly long video now, but that shows my process anyway and how I produce my images. Every image is different, but that gives you an idea anyway. Thanks for that.